Professor Krishna Kumar, Dean from State Bank Institute of Leadership, welcoming you all to the uh, hybrid format panel discussion today on the theme of Union Interim Budget 2024. So, a warm welcome once again. It's my privilege to also welcome the experts who have joined virtually. Mr. V.K. Vijay Kumar, I could see a warm welcome to you, sir. Mr. Shanta
Thank you,
Kumar, who
Mr.
was also connected,
Good morning to
a
you.
warm welcome to you as well, sir.
Morning.
And I hope Mr. Sachidanand Shukla is also there. Dr. Sachidanand, you're there? I don't know. One second.
I think he has to log in. Good morning, Vijay Kumar, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Fine, sir. Thank you, sir. Good morning, Shanta Kumar, sir.
Good morning to you.
Thank you.
One second. I'll just my privilege to alert. Yeah. Have you joined, Dr. Sachidanand? Please. Okay, we are waiting. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Sachidanand will also join us in the process. So we'll get started. As we see, these swelling ranks both online as well as here, the full house. So it is our prerogative to get it started on time. So as we all know, that let us start this particular program with a small welcome address by our director, welcoming the gathering. So our director, Dr. Bangar Raju, the director of State Bank Institute of Leadership, over to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Krishna Kumar.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear colleagues and friends and esteemed panelists. I extend a warm welcome to all those who are present physically here and those who have logged in online to listen to this insightful panel discussion on the interim budget presented by the Honorable Finance Minister yesterday. We are all aware that budget is a financial plan which will impact you, me, and almost every citizen of this country. It's a tool for the government to plan their income and expenditure, having some implications on our daily lives. I'm very happy today we have the privilege of having expert panelists today with us. Dr. V.K. Vijay Kumar, a Chief Investment Strategist from Geojit Financial Services. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. K. Shanta Kumar, Chartered Accountant and Taxation Expert and Managing Partner, SKV and Associates. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
And Dr. Sachidanand Shukla, Group Chief Economist, L&T. I think he will be shortly logging in. Welcome to you also, sir. All these panelists carry a wealth of knowledge and experience in the field of economics and finance. They will be sharing their insights, dissect the complexities of the budget, and engage in a thought-provoking discussion on this important document. I'm sure that this discussion will be throwing much light on the intricacies of the budget and its implications on various sectors of the economy, and also how it will be shaping up the economy going forward. My compliments to Dr. Krishna Kumar, our Dean, for organizing this event by roping in such expert panelists to educate us and enlighten us on this very, very important topic. Thank you, Krishna Kumar. And once again, I extend a warm welcome to all of you. Without wasting much time, actually, let us start the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so it's my privilege to introduce formally the panelists and their profile so that we can get started. I'll start with Dr. V.K. Vijay Kumar, who is the, as Director Sir was telling, is the Chief Investment Strategist with Geojit Financial Services. Incidentally, he's a very, very highly respected figure in academic circles and as well as a budget analyst, being there in this for the past 20 plus years, actually. And Dr. Vijay Kumar joined Geodis in 2010. Prior to that, he was also the head of the Department of Economics in a college in Guruvayur called Sri Krishna College, and is an MA and PhD in economics from Calicut University. Dr. Vijay Kumar is known for his articles on economic issues, which appears regularly in the print media. He is an active in discussions on economic issues in TV channels as well. And he organizes, a lot of investor-related conferences and all for the Geojit Financial Services as a chief investment strategist, and a wealth of knowledge of late in a lot of market commentaries as well. A keen observer of financial markets. His paper on financial innovation, boons and disasters was adjudged as the best paper in international conference held in Dialogue College sometime in 2009. And to his credit, he has got whole lot of columns in capital market on wealth management related subjects and whole lot of dailies. And he has also written 4 books, published 210 articles, 72 research papers. And it is very regular in publishing when it comes to dailies like Hindu, Business Line, Economic Times, Money Control, Business Standard, Outlook Money, Mint, Financial Chronicle, etc. And he's also a very sought after person, at least I know in Malayalam channels, whenever any kind of economic things come up. So a warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, Krishna Kumar.
Yeah. And this is for the uninitiated to the larger audience. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Shanta Kumar, who is a chartered accountant and a taxation expert. Dr. Shanta Kumar is a practicing chartered accountant and has over 40 years of post-qualification experience. He served as managing partner of SKV Associates in India and as well as in UAE. He's a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, passing with an All India rank, and is a certified information systems auditor also. And also he has a PhD in majoring in finance and a degree in law. And his PhD is in taxation, incidentally. Starting his career with Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation, which is, as you all know, as a state financial corporation, and moving over to multinational company Hindustan Lever, he was. It is only thereafter that he had set up this institution. Dr. Shanta Kumar, has a huge lot of client base of Fortune 500 companies, and he represents their clients in GST, VAT, income tax related cases, both in tribunals as well as in filings and so on. And he's a consultant based out of Kerala, though he travels widely in various parts of India as well as overseas. He has presented at various forums and several papers on VAT, GST, finance, IT, audit, company law, management topics, published several articles on these subjects as well. Dr. Shantakumar is a visiting faculty on to several business schools and professional institutions in India and in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc. And is in the panel of consultants of IDBI, IFCI, MSME Institute, and so on. He is executive committee member of the American Chamber of Commerce and is a member of the expert committee of the Guruvayur Devasam Board as well. Dr. Shantakumar is the past president of Thrissur Management Association, chairman of Meban Nidhi Limited, which is a Manappuram Group enterprise. He is a director in Manappuram Jewelers as well. He is married to Dr. Sati Shantakumar, a pediatrician, and a couple as well as with 2 children. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Shantakumar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Professor Krishna Kumar.
Thank you. And my pleasure. Good to see Dr. Sachidanand joining there. Sachidanand, hi. Yeah. Dr. Sacha, my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sachidanand Shukla for the audience. Dr. Sachidanand Shukla is a group chief economist at Larsen and Toubro. He has around 25 years of experience spanning the corporate sector, capital market, financial services, and public policy. Prior to joining L&T, he was associated with Mahindra Group as chief economist for 7 years and with Axis Capital, earlier known as Enam, as senior vice president and chief economist prior to that. In his key areas of research are on industry, financial markets, strategy, development policy, program implementation, impact evaluation, etc. And he holds a PhD in financial economics from Birla Institute of Technology and is a postgraduate in economics from University of Mumbai, and is also a PGDBM in finance from KJ Somaiya with a gold medal. He was a member of the Niti Aayog's Consultative Committee of Economists and has been a part of a planning commission World Bank study on Maharashtra Development Report as an external expert. He is keenly associated with academia and is a member of the board of Somaiya Vidyavihar University in Mumbai, and also has authored a book on macroeconomics for the BMS course students of Mumbai University, besides publishing several papers and articles in newspaper. He has also been a keen participant in research seminars, conferences, discussions on macroeconomic related topics. Dr. Shukla is currently co-chairperson of FICCI's National Economics and Policy Committee, chairperson of Policy Economics Committee of the Bombay Chamber, and also associated with Confederation of Indian Industry and Associates. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Sachidanand.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sachidanand. Yeah. Now we'll get started. Let me now, without wasting any more time, since we have a whole lot of themes to be discussed, I thought I'll straight away kick off the discussion with our panelists by bringing in on the substantive part of. Broadly, I'll be posing discussion points to each of them as per their competence areas, and at least I hope that the last half an hour we can have a question and answer session with the audience here, as well as people who are tuned in virtually. So that is largely the agenda today. And now coming to the interim budget, I'll take this first question to Dr. V.K. Vijay Kumar. We all know that this is only an interim budget, and it is coming up at a time when India is going to face an election in about 3 months, and this whole interimness has got a validity of maximum of 3-4 months. We also know that incidentally, a lot of other countries, in fact, there is a data which says that 1/3 of the world is going to face election in 2024. So much is happening, in the larger scheme of things as well. The the war is being fought in at least 2 fronts in the global economy. Recession is still on in various places. So the whole environment, is of a nature with the disruptions and, the factors of even the policy related matters are getting prolonged since if you look at the markets also, whether it is US markets or, other European economies and everywhere, many of the interventions were at a prolonged slow pace. It is going already, it has become the Fed has taken a decision that the next policy cut will happen only by June and so on. So much of the clawback or the soft landing part of the economy is still to come. So it is in such a situation that this particular budget is coming up in India. And we also knew that this budget will have a lot of things on the poll bugle part of it, as well as perhaps, how the future is getting looked up, when we are talking about India at 100 and so on. So going by the overall scheme of things and the articulation in the budget, we also knew that, the renewal, consolidation and expansion are going to be the core of, the government strategy going forward, at least the NDA government strategy. And true to that, you could see a lot of pronouncements and proposals in the budget. How do you see these things, and how do you weave it into the larger scheme of the the budget making, as well as in the context of the current NDA government, which is seeking a re-election, and already Finance Minister has also told that she will come back to the economy with the full budget sometime in July. So how do you see this?
Good morning to all my fellow panelists and also to all the participants. At the outset, let me appreciate the SBI Institute of Leadership and the Dean, Dr. Krishna Kumar in particular, for organizing this budget analysis almost immediately after the budget. I'm slated to participate in many budget discussions in the next few days, but this is the first. So Krishna Kumar also always wants it to be the first major program on the budget analysis. So it's a privilege to be here with all of you this morning, and indeed a privilege to be a part of this very esteemed panel. Well, as you rightly said, 1/3 of the world is on election mode this year, including the largest economy in the world, the US. Now, coming to India, well, going by the budget proposals, the interim budget proposals, the government appears to be very confident of the election outcome. That's why we had a business-like budget, which does not have any freebies or.
Could I request all of you to shut down your mobiles, please? It's disturbing others.
If you go by the previous history of interim budgets, including the last interim budget presented by Mr. Piyush Goyal, well, you can always find some playing to the gallery, some election-oriented gimmicks, some proposals which can garner some votes. So that's why interim budgets just before the elections are often regarded as normally feared to be, as economists fear them to be, populist budget. But surprising everyone this time, the finance minister has presented a business-like budget, which for an interim budget can be regarded as a very good exercise. Because the focus of the budget this time is fiscal consolidation, not freebies, no tax relief, no relief even to the Kisans. That was a relief that was expected, the PM Kisan Nidhi, which was 6,000 crores. It was widely expected that it will be raised to 8,000 so that the farmers can be placated. But nothing of that kind of placation happened. It was a purely business-like budget. And there are two major factors which enabled the finance minister to present a business-like budget. Number one, the Indian economy is in a very sweet spot. Our GDP growth is above 7%. India will be the only economy in the world, only large economy in the world to clock above 7% growth rate for 3 years running. And for the next year, financial year 25, also 7% GDP growth is very much likely. The potential is there. So we'll be the first large economy in the world post-COVID to clock 7% GDP growth for 4 years running. Our macros are in decent shape. Fiscal deficit was an area of concern, but it is being brought down now. 5.8% for FY24 was much better than expected. The current account deficit is pretty comfortable at only 1% of the GDP. Inflation is below 6%. The foreign exchange reserves are $615 billion. When our neighboring countries, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, are knocking on the doors of the IMF for foreign exchange loans, India is sitting pretty and was in a position to give an assistance of $4 billion to Sri Lanka during this time of crisis. So this Goldilocks scenario for the Indian economy enabled the finance minister to present a budget without playing to the gallery, without any freebies. From the political angle also, what facilitated this business-like budget is that politically also, unlike the last budget, when Mr. Piyush Goyal presented the last budget, interim budget in 2019, the ruling dispensation was not very optimistic about a very definite outcome for the ruling party, even though it transpired that way. But this time it is different. Of course, in politics, it's very difficult to make predictions. As Harold Wilson famously said, 1 week is a long time in politics. A lot of things can happen. But as of now, politically, the government is sitting pretty. And that is why the body language, apart from the figures revealed by the finance minister and also the prime minister, the body language of the cabinet, the prime minister and the cabinet, and also the leadership exuded a lot of confidence. So they thought it is not necessary now at this juncture to present an election-oriented budget to appease the electorate, a populist budget to appease the electorate. So these two factors, the economy in a sweet spot and the political situation very favorable to the ruling dispensation, these two factors enable the finance minister to present a very good budget in spite of the approaching elections.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This economy being in sweet spot, giving a lot of confidence is the message. Yes. So now coming to, I will take the next discussion to Dr. Sachidanand. It's always said, like I think people, Friedman is the one who said that if you want to, look to the future, better create it. So that kind of a confidence you could see when, in the budget speech, when they articulated on a lot of proposals, sort of achievement report card of the last 10 years from 2014 to 24, but also could peek into the future, especially when we are talking about the green economy, blue economy, or even so much of outlays on infrastructure, railways, and so on. So when you look at in the larger scheme of things, by peeking into the future of India becoming a developed country by 2047 and all, perhaps a lot of articulation and perhaps proposals are also on the table. How much of actualization will result is, only we need to wait and watch. But how do you see that whole momentum being sustained after the interim budget, when you look to the futuristic part of it, when we are talking about investments side or the outlays that has been brought about, be it defense or agriculture or infrastructure and so on? Dr. Sachidanand.
So good morning. Thank you once again, Professor Krishna Kumar. Glad to see Director SBIL and my fellow co-panelists, Dr. Vijay Kumar and Dr. Shanta Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, really a pleasure to be here discussing the interim budget. I think one thing which is very important in any discussion, especially on economics and policy, is the context, right? We need to understand the context better so as to be able to place what has been done or really appreciate it better. So I think the world we are in today, we've just come out of a once in a century pandemic. There are hot wars going on in Europe and in the Middle East. And all of these geopolitical tensions, right? China, Taiwan, and things like that. And then there are technological changes happening, things like AI and things like that, right? So I think there is something that I heard and I think is very interesting, is that forget the past. The future will give you plenty to worry about, right? So if you are already worried about some of the things, I think we need to look at the future. And Dr. Krishna Kumar, you did speak about the future. I think what the government is therefore trying to do in this overall context is to really back up or double down on high quality capex-led growth in times of uncertainty. Now, why is this important? We all know that it gives you more bang for the buck, right? It gives you 3x in terms of multiplier, roughly 3x, as compared to just 0.9 when you do revenue expenditure. And I just wanted to point out how big this emphasis or commitment to capex-led growth is. So if you look at the share of capital expenditure in GDP, right, it's gone up from about 1.67% in FY20 to about 3.4% of GDP in F25. Now, why is this important? The number is not very large, right? 1.67 going to 3.4. But what is interesting and notable is that this is the longest uninterrupted period of annual increase in capex in India's fiscal history, right? So that's how remarkable this is. So don't just look at, say, the numbers 10 lakh crore going to 11.1, etc. I think in our fiscal history, we have not seen this kind of uninterrupted period of continuous rise in capex. And like I said, this is high quality growth. This creates jobs, and jobs and growth are diffused. It doesn't happen in just one corner of the country. When you do capex, when you do railway spending or construct roads, highways, it goes to all nooks and corners of the country, right? So growth and jobs are getting diffused, and you're not favoring one particular segment or state or geography. And if you look at what they're doing, this does have a lot of knock-on benefits to multiple segments, sectors like steel, cement, pipes, paints, and also those rail corridors that they have spoken about, and the Gati Shakti initiative coupled with that uh, is going to enhance the efficiency in the economy, right? So, I mean, just a example. So Coimbatore to Chandigarh, typically the via road trucks, if you were to ferry goods, used to take some 7 to 9 days, right? Now it takes just about 2 days. So the kind of efficiencies that this emphasis on continuous building on infrastructure, whether it is by way of digital or physical or phygital, uh, it is humongous. Look at the diesel cost saving that one can get. And then you can take multiple examples. The other example that I would want to give is it's also saving time. So think about the latest, say the Ram temple in Ayodhya. The speed at which things are getting built when it comes to infrastructure, right? Because we are doing using technology, we are having this emphasis from the center, from the state, we are being able to build things much faster. So something that was getting built, for example, a highway, airport, or a port, it used to take, say, 3 to 4 years. Now it is getting built in much shorter period of time. So you're getting not only bigger bang for the buck in terms of jobs and growth, etc., but also enhancing the efficiency and productivity, and also doing things in a much shorter period of time. And I think we can speak more about some of these things, but just hand it back to you to take it further.
Thank you, Dr. Sachidan. Well said. The kind of confidence on how we are delivering in terms of efficiency part. Good. So now I'll take the discussion to Dr. Shantakumar, who's, as we all know, that is also the tax expert, apart from being, an ex-banker, or at least with the financial institutions and so many places he has done roles. Sir, looking at the taxation part, we all knew that the finance minister hasn't touched both the direct and indirect taxation rates, except giving some extension effect in some cases. Or the interim budget is largely silent, and perhaps a few concessions when it comes to outstanding direct tax demands. None of the other things are touched. Is it the best that could have expected during given the context? I thought I'll pick your brain on that. Over to you, Dr. Shantakumar.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Krishnakumar, and the SBI for including me in this panel of consultants. I've been there for the past 2-3 years now, and also nice to join learned persons like Mr. Shukla and Dr. Vijay Kumar. Now, addressing to your question, the fiscal rectitude and conservatism has been the hallmark of this government during this budget. Like Dr. Vijay Kumar said, we have to analyze it or look at it from the context in which it is done. If you are comparing this interim budget with the previous interim budget of 2019, you would see that in 2019, the political scenario was slightly different. In the states like MP, Rajasthan, and Chhattisgarh, the government lost the elections in 2018, which prompted Mr. Piyush Goyal, who presented the budget, to give a popular welfare dish outs. But that is not the situation now. Now, Mrs. Sridharaman has not given any sops of freebies. The only time she used the word free is when she talked about the solar-powered electricity. And other than that, she has not talked about anything on freebies or anything of that sort, because that the confidence the government has that they will be coming back to power, because they have won all the three states which in the Hindi heartland during the last elections, which prompted them to have this confidence. And coming to the direct taxes amendments, like Mr. Krishna Kumar said, there has not been much of any amendments in the direct taxations, and the direct tax collection has more than tripled in the last 10 years.
True.
And number of returns filers has also swelled 2.5 times. And faster refunds have also been given by the government. Earlier, it used to take in 13-14, it used to take about 93 days for giving the refunds. And now it comes out in 10 days. In one of my few clients, it came out in a few hours from the day it was filed. And the average monthly gross GST collection has reached 1.66 trillion in the financial year 2024. And certain benefits for startups and investments by sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, tax exemptions for IFSCs units earlier expanded to 31.3, extended by 1 year. From 31.3.24, it has been extended by 1 year. And withdrawal of the outstanding demands has also been brought about, which is a big relief for about 1 crore taxpayers. I mean, these are the major highlights of this budget, and the same rates continue for corporates, 22% for some corporates, and people who are in the new manufacturing, 15%, and for the no tax liability for increase up to 7 lakhs in the new scheme. That's all continuing. And this is basically or generally the introductory remarks on the taxation side of the budget. Thank you.
Fine, sir. Fine, sir. Well, I'll come back to you. We need to perhaps discuss on that interest-free, or loan component for R&D and things like that. So perhaps we'll discuss on that at the course of the time. I'll again take the question back to Dr. Vijay Kumar. We knew that as he was talking, the fiscal consolidation is one of the hallmark of this budget, as well as we all know that as per the FRBM Act also, we are committed to reach that fiscal deficit of 4.5 by financial year 2025. Now, this particular budget talks about fiscal deficit being at 5.1 from 5.8. So, how do you see the overall calculus in this budget? Are we on course to reaching the FRBM targets? That is one part of my question. And the second part is that how do we compare ourselves when it comes to the debt GDP ratio, or certain those kind of metrics when you look at in the larger scheme of things of the world as well as India? So does it give us comfort when you peek into the future? And of course, the revenue and expenditure side of how the interim budget has tried to balance, some observations on that as well. Over to you, Dr. Vijay.
Yes, in response to the first part of your question regarding fiscal consolidation and the fiscal glide path, yes, we are on track. We are very much on track. Actually, India had reached a low level of fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP at 3.4% before COVID in 1920, but the COVID completely altered the scenario beyond normal levels of management. And therefore, in the year 2021, the COVID year, where we had to do a lot of fiscal stimulus and assistance to states, the fiscal deficit shot up to 9.2%. Actually, there were economists, including some of the Nobel laureates, who wanted more fiscal stimulus from the government of India, but fortunately, better sense prevailed, and the government of India was more discreet in providing the fiscal stimulus. And the countries which gave more fiscal stimulus are now at the receiving end with hyperinflation. So the finance minister last year itself had given a glide path, a fiscal glide path to reach a fiscal deficit of 4.5%. This year, in financial year 24, the target was 5.9%, but the government has bettered that with a fiscal deficit target of 5.9%. That is what the revised estimates say, 5.8% fiscal deficit against the budget estimates of 5.9. The reason is the revenue collections, both the tax revenue and the non-tax revenue, because of the higher dividend from public sector banks and also from the RBI. The non-tax revenue part also has improved, even though we have fallen short of the divestment proceeds. That is a weakness.
Yes.
So as far as the glide path is concerned, the next year target is 5.1%. There was a poll among economists in which I also participated. The average projection in that poll was 5.3%. I also put it at 5.3%. The most optimistic was 5.2%, but the finance minister and her economic team has proved to be very smart with a projection of 5.1%. And this 5.1% is eminently achievable because their target for nominal GDP growth is only 10.5% for FY25. We can do better than 10.5% because the GDP deflator, which brought the nominal GDP growth down to below 10% in FY24, will be higher in FY25. Therefore, 10.5% nominal GDP growth and also the tax buoyancy projected in the budget are on the lower side. The government has been, for the last 2 years, underperforming and over-delivering. So that is a good thing to do, underperforming and over-delivering. So we are well set on this fiscal glide path so that we will reach the glide path target of 4.5% of GDP by FY26. But in this year's budget, the finance minister has slightly tweaked and said that our target is less than 4.5% by FY26, not 4.5%. So that might appear to be an ambitious target, but then going by the growth momentum in the economy and also the tax buoyancy, the income tax collections are booming. My friend Shantakumar can throw more light on that. Already he has indicated that the tax efficiency is very high. Refund time has come down drastically. So income tax collections are impressive at around 23% for the first 8 months, I think. We don't have the latest figures. And the corporate tax also is doing exceedingly well. And GST collections are also doing good, consistently at more than 1.7 lakh crores a month. So it is a sort of a Goldilocks scenario for the economy, and therefore the glide path will can certainly be achieved going forward. What was the second part of your question, Krishna Kumar?
I was trying to know from you the debt GDP ratio part of it.
Okay, the debt GDP ratio, if you look at India's debt GDP ratio in comparison with the debt GDP ratio of other emerging markets, comparison with the USA, Japan, Germany doesn't make any sense at all, because these are AAA rated economies where the tax GDP ratio, doesn't make much sense, because for US, for instance, their currency is the global reserve currency. Therefore, comparison with developed countries doesn't make sense. We have to make an orange to orange comparison. So if you take the developing emerging economies like let's say Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan, South Korea, etc., our debt GDP ratio is on the higher side. For central government, I think it is around 56%. And if you take the central government plus state governments, it is north of 80%. I think it's around 85%. So we are in the range of countries which are having higher debt GDP ratios, like Brazil and Argentina, which of course are not very good company. Latin American countries had a very terrible track record of indebtedness. So India is on the right track, but we have to do fiscal consolidation, take it very seriously and bring it down further. bring it down further, because 80-85% debt to GDP for an emerging economy is not very safe, because you can't be very sure about some unknowns hitting the global economy. Suppose the crisis in West Asia, suppose it aggravates, God forbid, but suppose it aggravates, because during a war you can never be sure. Some misadventure can trigger some unforeseen consequences. Therefore, if you have a situation where the crude price shoots through the roof, well, then our current account deficit can come under pressure. Fiscal deficit also can come under pressure. Rupee can come under pressure. All these things are there. Therefore, to be on the safer side, we have to reduce our fiscal deficit and also the debt GDP ratio going forward, and would like to be in the company of countries like South Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan, and not like in the company of Brazil and Argentina.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, now I'll take the further part of the discussion to Dr. Sachidanand. Dr. Sachidanand, when we discuss the economy part of it, we always talk about, even when we talk about growth, the quantum of growth versus the quality of growth debate. Now, in this budget, you could notice that, the interim budget had a lot of welfare proposals, which are, qualitative related than the quantitative part. I mean, whether it is a poll bugle or is it serious intent is another part. But how do you see that, the momentum towards quality of growth getting built into the whole articulation of the budget, and does it really help in serving the the bottom half of the population pyramid as we progress as a nation? And since now that the whole idea is to become a Vikasit Bharat, so does it gel into that kind of an ideology? Your take on that?
So if you look at this whole debate or talk on quantum versus quality of growth, I think it's very, very important that we recognize that capital is finite, right? And India is a capital-starved economy. And if you look at the size of the budget, right, we are spending about 47 lakh crore in a year, right? And if we are doing that sort of massive spending, we better think on the quality of spending aspect, right? And there, I did mention in the initial comments as to how CAPEX is a better way of doing that. And if you recall, just about, say, 10, 15 years back, our revenue expenditure used to be more than 90%. Capital expenditure used to be just about 8 to 10%. Now it is about 23% if you look at F25 number, right? And the revenue expenditure as a say percentage of total expenditure has gone down significantly over the years. And that is very, very important. So if you're spending so much money, I mean, I did mention 47 lakh crore, and that's a humongous amount. If you recall, our GDP size, entire GDP size used to be close to that in, say, 2007-8, right? So we are spending that sort of money. And therefore, we must understand what we are spending on. And like I said, the CAPEX spend enhances efficiency of the economy, the productivity of the economy, speed, and also scale, right? All of these are going to be very, very important going forward. And also, if you look at what and how we are doing, right? We've heard views on fiscal consolidation, etc. So just to summarize that, I think what a lower fiscal deficit does is it also cools down overall aggregate demand in the economy and inflation. And we all know the RBI has been trying to fight inflation, just like other central banks in the world who've been struggling to control inflation. And therefore lowers the pressure on the RBI to really tighten, right? And there is this crowding out that we talk about, pressure for the private sector. And therefore the fiscal discipline also enhances India's financial stability standing. India is a standout story, therefore, even from this perspective. So the efficiency and the qualitative aspect also comes through this. Just to give you a contrast, the US economy, their fiscal deficit, right, the spending, incremental, say, deficit, shot up by $1 trillion, right? So they were to incur a deficit of, say, $1 trillion. It doubled to 2 trillion in just about 12 months. So at a time when some of these other large economies are really struggling, right? So their fiscal arm is really going berserk and overspending, and therefore the monetary side has to really tighten. So you know what the Fed is doing, right? It has had to really jack up interest rates to 5.5% in just about 16 to 18 months. And that's huge by way of, say, the kind of economy they are. Remember, they have typically interest rates in the vicinity of 1 to 2%. Post GFC, as we know, it's been close to zero. Now, 0 to 5 in an economy which grows at just 2% can create multiple problems in terms of financial stability, bank failures. We did see two of the largest US bank failures happen. Two of the largest three happen in just last year, right? So I think this is the qualitative aspect when it comes to the fiscal side. And also the kind of areas that we're getting into. Say, for example, railways, now we're spending 2.6 lakh crore. That is important from a sustainability point of view as well, right? Efficiency. So if your goods start to move on to railways and only the last mile gets ferried by the road sector, it not only gives you efficiencies, cost savings on diesel, etc., but also saves on time and is more friendly for the environment. So that's the other angle to efficiency. We're also trying to emphasize, if you've seen, a 1 lakh crore fund on innovation. If we are able to double down on that and the implementation is good, India will become a leading manufacturing as well as services. I mean, will just bolster our credentials globally. The semiconductor push, for example, Gati Shakti, all of these. So I think if you put it all together, I think the efficiency part and the quality of spending is really, really important. And the government is taking the right steps, the right initiatives. The solar rooftop, for example, the other example. I think it is going to help us in terms of achieving higher productivity and efficiency levels, and also make India a standout story at a time when globally fiscal policies are being irresponsible and then policy measures are really problematic. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very exhaustive, the kind of qualitative inputs that is going into, the various welfare proposals that are been articulated. So, and just that, good to have pointed out that corpus of 1 lakh crore made available with 50 years interest-free loan or with much less interest and all. In fact, I want to bring in Dr. Shantakumar on that, since he is also in the process of guiding and perhaps shepherding many entrepreneurs. I'm sure that this, though, the first time such a huge kind of tap is opened by this announcement of 1 lakh crore corpus being made available for the R&D in the private sector. When we are talking about, the Make in India story to click or to be a manufacturing hub of not all and sundry item, but the superior items, including into the STEM areas of research or AIML or the transition technologies, green technologies, and so on. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs or big corporates and everybody would be very much interested to perhaps tap this particular source. How do you see this, sir, from the budget, especially when we are talking about, progressive part of, addressing the taxation aspects or giving benefits to the corporate sector for a sustainable, corporate R&D and so on?
Yes, Mr. Kumar. See, if, talking about the R&D expenditure, if you look, India is one of the countries which spend the least on research and development.
Okay.
If you take the total expenditure, the amount spent on R&D is less than 1% of the total expenditure. And highest was in 2015-16, which was about 0.6% of the total amount spent. So 1 trillion has been earmarked fund provided for it, and they are giving a 50-year interest-free loan with long-term financing and refinancing with a 0 to low rate of interest. The focus will be on skilling, unskilling, and reskilling of the employees, because we know that we have the demographic advantage, and we will be the people who will be providing labor force to the entire world, and that is the time. And we are already late, and now we have invested about 2023 500 million was invested in deep technology by the startups, according to the NASSCOM report.
Okay.
And about 300 startups in artificial intelligence. We have about 1900 units. In big data analysis, we have about 570 units. In robotics, we have 60 units. Drones, we have 60 units. And cyber security, we have 40 units. And space and satellite, we have about 10 units. So these units will be benefited. Unless we do some technological innovation, then we cannot proceed or hope to become a developed economy by 2047. Because if you see all developed economies, investment in R&D is coming to about 5 to 6% of the GDP. So this is the right time that we should go for it, especially when we are planning to take a lead in space research and other areas. So I think this will be a real boost for the growth of the new economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And for the participants who are tuned in virtually, you can send your questions to the panelists in the chat box, and our support officers will be sending it to you, sending it to me. I'll post that to the panelists. And we are also on live in both Facebook as well as YouTube pages of State Bank of India. So I'll continue the discussion maybe in another after 15-20 minutes. We can 10-15 minutes we can start opening for the questions. So now I'll again continue the discussion with Dr. Vijay Kumar. Now with the budget, well, articulating, the finance minister very clearly told that the focus is on Garib, Yuva, Annadatta as well as Nari Shakti. So the thing is very clear where the government has focused, and especially when it comes to Nari Shakti, also whole lot of initiatives was articulated. The 30 crores Mudra Yojana loan scheme for women entrepreneurs, the data given by the finance minister, 28% increase in women enrollment in higher education. And in the STEM courses alone, it is said that about 43% of enrollment are of women, which is one of the highest in the world. There is also a claim of higher participation of women in the workforce. And, of course, we all know that the reservation of women in Lok Sabha assemblies and so on. And just to continue the discussion of the qualitative aspect in the, proposals, the immunization program for the girls, or the impact on the immunization for cervical cancer and so on. Somewhere along, there is a whole lot of Nari Shakti initiatives which is getting further pushed, propelled in the budget proposals. Does it all lead up to India becoming a better nation when it comes to female labor participation ratio? Because FLPR, we all know that is one of the poorest in India as of now. We are unfortunately even less than of Pakistan or Bangladesh when it comes to female labor participation. And World Bank and everybody have commented that if that was ensured, perhaps India could have reaped another 1.5% more in GDP to contribute to our GDP. So these kind of measures hopefully are supposed to lead us to a better FLPR going forward. And beyond the rhetoric, How do you see this panning out? Does it really help us to become a country of equals where more of FLPR will result in contribution of the women folk to the economy is also going to come to the center stage? Over to you, sir.
Of course it will. Krishna Kumar, your question itself has enough data to indicate that female empowerment, women empowerment is happening. Your data on Mudra loans to women, only the point that was missed was the what is called the Lakh Didi under Lakh Didi program.
Yes, yeah.
And another 1 crore Didis, Lakh Didis are to be
Yes.
to be created through these programs, skilling and all that. So, but then you're right about the female labor participation ratio, which is an area of concern. But there are some other major initiatives which is addressing this. We know that in our problem villages in India, women spend some 3 to 4 hours in fetching water. And under the gel mission of the government, on which a huge amount of money has already been spent, and it is being implemented on a war footing also, piped water connection is reaching the households in the rural areas, particularly in problem villages. So if women who were formerly spending 3 hours fetching water don't have to spend time fetching water, then the 3 hours of their time will be available. More time will be available so they can focus on work. So this will enhance efficiency. Dr. Shukla was telling us a lot about efficiency gains through improvements in logistics, etc. Very interesting points. This is another efficiency gains. Women being freed from the shackles of time being spent on fetching water through the gel mission, etc. But then you are right, these things do not change overnight. It will take time, and therefore skilling also will take time. Female labor participation ratio is low compared to even our neighbors. Even Bangladesh has a much better female labor participation rate. But if these programs which we are implementing sees fruition, certainly we can expect a gradual improvement in this area. Not a dramatic improvement, but gradual improvement. By the time India becomes an $8 trillion economy by 2032, then our ladies will be contribution, the women workforce will be contributing substantially towards that.
True. Thank you. Thank you. Just to continue the discussion with Dr. Sachidanand, we all know that, when we talk about the formalization in the economy, the last 10 years report card suggests that more and more financialization and formalization of the economy has happened in India. Now, when you look to the future, many of these value statements, how do you see these, especially, when you look through the prism of an MSME entrepreneur and all? So that is one part of my question. And how do you see the skilling part of it? Now, since you're also associated with a lot of higher education institution and all, I felt that there is a lot of focus that given to the skilling part, going forward. So the education, gross enrollment ratios and so on are getting articulated on one part, but then the skilling part also to, there is, I think, somewhere in the prior to the budget, we had that document of Indian economy a review, a report card kind of a document. In that, it was claimed that many more, about more than from say 20 and odd percentage to it has become 50 and odd percentage of our people are. I'm talking about the educated lot are becoming more employable. So somewhere along those skilling initiatives which is on is contributing or likely to contribute more. So what has been those kind of proposals in the plate as far as this interim budget is concerned? Over to you, Dr. Sajid.
So I think when we talk about things like jobs, formalization, and skilling, we need to recognize that these are multi-year, multi-decade journeys, right? And it's probably not fair to really judge a budget, a single year budget, and that too an interim budget, right? This was more a vote on account on those aspects. But having said that, I think there are multiple things that the policy side is trying to deliver, and like I said, it should be seen as a continuation rather than just one point in time or one budget. Uh, so right from things like GST, RERA, there are attempts from the policy side to formalize the economy, the whole digitization drive, the use of technology when it comes to taxation and things like that, or delivery of government schemes, right? We have seen a lot really improve over time. And the Gati Shakti, for example, is another step in the journey of formalization. A lot is also being done for MSMEs in terms of providing them timely or adequate financial support. There are digital platforms, there are diktats from the government for, say, some of the PSUs to pay up in time and not really hold back on some of these payments to these MSMEs. Then there is the training aspect to MSMEs for enabling them to really compete, be able to compete globally. And then the whole, say, change in terms of the regulatory framework and architecture. So if you think about these things and the jobs and the skilling part, all adds up over a period of time, which will enable, say, the MSMEs that you spoke about and asked me, and also the skilling part. We are again, I think, going back to the context. I just wanted to highlight one important thing here. As we speak, there is a dichotomy in the economy. So a lot of these large established names, some of the top tier IIMs and IITs, are really struggling to place people this year, right? So we've seen a particular institution that really struggled to place more than 100 people for just summer placements last year, just December. And then we have seen another instance in January where the IIM is really struggling to place people, close to 100 people. We've also seen the funding, say, aspect of startups really drying up. And then there are these geopolitical and global macroeconomic uncertainties. And that is actually dampening the mood in terms of the white collar hiring segment. And at the same time, the duality that I want to highlight is that companies like ours or people in the manufacturing or construction or infrastructure space are really struggling to get blue collar people or semi-skilled or unskilled people to work on, say, construction sites and things like that, right? So no amount of paying money or trying to get them to work for you at a particular site is working. So I think this is another aspect that we need to factor in when we talk about formalization, when we talk about some of these the policy incentives that the government is trying to give to the bottom of the pyramid by giving free food and multiple avenues. I mean, paying money directly, whether it is by way of PM Kisan or Narega or some of those aspects. So the workforce is more aspirational. They're wanting more, and also in terms of skilling, we have to do a much better job because we need to cater to this duality of the economy. Maybe we have a lot more emphasis over the years in terms of creating white collar jobs, but things like PLI, manufacturing, infrastructure spending, all of that is creating a big boost to the blue collar and the segments below that. So I think when we talk about skilling, when we talk about MSMEs, we need to also factor in that aspect. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Complex. Complexities involved. Wonderful. Yeah. Now I'll take after this the last questions I'm going to pose to the panelists. After that, the floor is open for questioning by the participants from here as well as virtually. So those participants who are connected virtually, they can send in their questions in the chat box or unmute and ask. And those who are here present, they can just raise their hands, you can switch on that mic and then ask the question. So before that, I'll take one last question with our panelist, Dr. Shantakumar. Dr. Shantakumar, we all know that this particular we were discussing slightly with Dr. Vijay Kumar's response on the non-tax revenue front, including receipts from privatization and so on. Or, remember earlier on one or two budgets, a lot of talk of asset monetization and all was also done. But largely silent on all those contentious part in this budget. How do you see that one? And does it still make good the good calculus? The revenue streams will still flow in, or how is it?
Sorry. Mr. Krishnakumar, if you talk about disinvestment, the earlier philosophy or thought of the government was not to be in business. It is not the business of the government to be in business.
True.
And with that objective, they set up ambitious plans for disinvestment and set heavy targets to be achieved. But in reality, what has happened is in the earlier years, up to 2018-19, there were not any disinvestment to mention about, except perhaps the mergers between companies, government companies. For example, Hindustan Petroleum was taken over by ONGC. And only success story could be that of sale of Air India and taking LIC to the public. These were the only two instances which we could say successful. But now the focus has been slightly shifted. And now government is trying to turn around the public sector undertakings with close monitoring and also improving the efficiency of the management. And that is reflected, if you would see, that in 2020, the disinvestment was put in a back burner, and institutions like HAL, BEML, BHEL, and all those companies have started making profits. So the government is now making those organizations more profitable by improving the efficiency. And you would see that against a disinvestment of 6.6 in the last 5 years, 6 trillion in 5 years, estimated only 1.78 trillion was the disinvestment possible. But now the public sector undertakings are turned around, and in the last few years, the annual average return given by these public sector undertakings is about 12.2% against a 13.5% from the benchmark BSE index. So while the benchmark index was 13.5% return, public sector undertakings are given 12.2. That is also adding to exchequer. So that way money is being generated by these public sector undertakings, which were earlier bleeding the exchequer. So this investment has now, so this disinvestment has now been changed, and the companies are being turned around, giving more orders.
And you could see that in the case of public sector banks also. If you look at the Indian economy, that review, what DEA has published, it's very clearly articulating that the recapitalization program of the government, wherein in 2014 onwards, the weak banks, they pumped in, based on the prompt corrective action framework and all, have yielded a lot of results. This claim has been very clearly articulated by the government in the report. So that very conclusively proves your point as well, Dr. Shantakumar, I guess, in the financial sector.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah, that is right. Earlier, banks had these dual balance sheet problems. Correct. And and because the public sector undertakings, banks especially had a lot of NPAs. Now with the insolvency code in place, a lot of money has been recovered through that. And also the balance sheet has been strengthened by pumping in money. And public sector banks have also started doing extremely well now.
True. Thank you.
May I add one point, Krishna Kumar, here?
Please. Yes.
The turnaround in the public sector undertakings is truly dramatic. Even though we have been saying that it is none of government's business to be in business, if you look at the performance of public sector undertaking during the last 3 to 4 years, it has been nothing short of dramatic. To give you a data, an eye-opening data, in the year financial year 2018, the losses incurred by public sector banks, was rupees 87,000 crores in 1 year, 87,000 crores, because of asset quality review declared by Raghuram Rajan and the strict norms enforced. Now, what is the scenario? State Bank of India, as my friends here know, State Bank of India alone is making more than 50,000 crores profit in 1 year. And the total profits incurred by, realized by public sector banks is more than 1 lakh crores in financial year 23. And that's why in the year 22, calendar year 22, public sector banks has been the best performing segment in the Indian stock market. It has never happened. The public sector banks becoming the best performing segment in the stock market. So as my friend Dr. Shantakumar said, the turnaround in the fortunes of the public sector companies has been dramatic, and that is perhaps one of the reasons why the government has put divestment on the back burner.
Wonderful. They don't want a golden goose to flip away. Right. Wonderful. So now, thanks for the articulating it. Now the floor is open to question. Whoever who has questions to be asked to the experts, please unmute and ask. Any questions, please? People who are tuned in here or virtual also. Yeah, please. Just switch on your good name. Just introduce yourself and ask the questions. I'll come to you next.
Good afternoon. I'm Pranab Das from SBI, LHO Chandigarh. I have one question regarding fiscal deficit.
Okay.
Like we have been talking about fiscal deficit and prudency related to that. But earlier, whenever we are talking about fiscal deficits, we are talking about deficit with state governments also. So what is the status right now? Whether the state governments have become very prudent or it is not a matter of concern? I would like to know the opinion of the panel.
I guess Dr. Vijay Kumar sir, if you could answer that, he does a lot of work on that. Oftentimes I've seen articulating that as well. Please,
that's a very good question. Well, the central government can only make projections regarding the fiscal deficit of the central government. Also, it can incentivize the state governments to improve their fiscal performance. For instance, in this year's budget, in the interest-free 50-year interest-free loans for projects to be implemented at the state level to be given to the state government. That was there last year also. The government has put in some conditions of performance. I don't know the details. It was not given in the budget speech, and therefore I have not read that in detail, but then it's likely that the state governments would have to improve their fiscal performance by reducing the debt. If you go by the RBI report on state finances, which was published some 4 months back, the RBI has identified 4 states with a very high debt to GDP ratio, and the 4 states are Punjab at the top, then Kerala, Rajasthan and West Bengal. These 4 states have a long way to go. Their debt GDP ratio is more than 35%, whereas according to the Fiscal Responsibility and Management Act, ideally your debt to GDP ratio should be within 29%. For Punjab, it is close to 39%. For Kerala, it is again 37%. But if you include also some extra budgetary borrowings which the Kerala government has done, I think it will be close to 40%. So these states which are very vulnerable have to address this issue, and that is perhaps one of the reasons why the RBI, the central government, is making the transfers to the state governments through projects like programs like this 50-year loan at no interest, conditional on fiscal performance.
So if I may add, I think
Yeah, please.
you asked the right question. If you look at it, the whole commentary is about the central government because it's the union budget, interim budget. But when a rating agency looks at the fiscal position, and please remember this year, India is going to get formally inducted in some of these bond indices, right? The JP Morgan and so on and so forth. There is going to be a lot more scrutiny on the fiscal accounts. And there, even the state government deficits are going to be mattering a lot. So if you look at the consolidated number, I think for FY24, the number should be about 3.2% aggregate state deficits, right? And this was 2.8% in FY23. And if you put all these together, roughly about 9% of GDP center plus states, and that is a lot, right? And then please remember, there is also the public sector enterprise borrowings. So when you look at the aggregate fiscal picture of India, which is what the rating agencies, etc., look at and comment on, it is still worrisome. And while the central government is reducing the fiscal deficit, and rightly so, we will need over time to see some correction on the state deficits as well. Because remember, India's public debt, so all of these deficits add to the public debt ratio. So we are at around 83%. And this is higher than all non-G7 major G20 countries, right? So if you take out the G7, within the remaining G20 countries, it is the highest. And high public debt in a volatile global scenario can be a source of macroeconomic vulnerability for a country like India. And then also the other aspect is higher debt and interest payments, right? Interest payments are, it's a huge number. You'll be shocked to know the number, whether it's the absolute or the percentage of GDP or percentage of expenditure. And what that does is it constrains the government's ability to really spend on where it actually matters most.
Thank you.
To add a few figures to that.
Dr. Shantakumar, if you want to come in, please, sir. Please.
Yeah, right. So I'll give some figures to whatever the other two learned speakers have said. So the combined revenue receipt of the 16 largest states has fallen by almost 80% to 5% from April to November.
Okay.
States have borrowed 37% more than they did during the last fiscal. Borrowing is to service the debt and to pay salaries. No productive investment is made out of the borrowings. Thirdly, fall is due to decrease in sales tax, excess duty, and stamps and registration fees. States' own finances or revenue was just 11% of GDP, which was supposed to be around 20%. And according to the tax devolution, maybe more than fourth quarter, but may not fully offset the shortfall in the grants. The grants are given, still it will not be offset. And in the first 8 months of 24, the combined SGST, that is state GST collection, excess duty, and registration fee of the 16 states expanded only by 12%, 10 to 12%. And sales tax collection contracted by 1.4%, limiting the growth of the state's own revenue to 11% against a budget of 20%. And collection was only 55%. And like Mr. Vijaykumar said, the tax to GDP ratio of some of the states, like Kerala, he said it is 38%, but taken together with the borrowings outside the budget, like KIFBI and Social Security Pension Fund, etc., overshoots 40%. It is 42.3%.
Yes.
And the revenue leakage is very rampant in almost all the states. Collections is very poor, and so the states' revenues as such are in shambles.
Okay. Thank you. I hope you are satisfied with the answer. So there is a corollary kind of a question, slightly diced in different way. I'll just read out. It has come online from Mr. Lakshmi Narasimha Sai Kiran. He is asking this question. I thought I'll take it to Dr. Shantakumar first. Sir, nearly 20% of budgetary allocation goes to interest component. Is it in line with global standards, or is it specific to India's bad fiscal discipline? How to reduce such unnecessary expenditure?
No, interest collection, so long as interest is paid for any investment which is productive.
Okay.
Like Mr. Shukla said, a rupee invested in infrastructure give 9 rupees in return. Whereas if you invest in giving freebies, then it will give only 90 paisa per rupee. So the investment, if the borrowing is for investment and investment is creating assets, generating assets, creating revenue, there is nothing wrong in borrowing it. So you cannot simply say that because it is 20% of the total expenditure, it is not good. But in most of the states, as you would see, that borrowing is being done for meeting the day-to-day revenue expenditure. So the investment is in the productive assets. Absolutely, there is no issue in borrowing. And most of the countries, if you would see the countries like US and China and all that, their borrowing is more than 100% of their revenues.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understood. I hope the participant who asked also understands that. Thank you. And sir, I think you had a question. Please unmute and ask.
Good morning, sir. May I ask a question, please?
Yeah. Sir, there is a participant here who is presently live. Immediately after that, you can ask.
Good morning, sir. I am Santosh Khandelwal.
Please go ahead.
Sir, I have a very common question. As a common man, there is general understanding that there should be some rebate or tax exemption declaration in the budget. But for last few years, there has been no such signal from the government. So as a common man, we should stop thinking on these lines that there will be any rebate exemption like things or any
Okay, very apt question is asking. Perhaps I'll take it to Dr. Shantakumar. I think he's best placed to answer that. Over to you, sir.
No, yes, his question is right. If his question is rightly placed in the sense that, I mean, if you would look at the pre-budget expectations, the wish list was very high because people said that now we have moved into the new tax regime where all exemptions and other things are avoided and you get only, and the exemption limit, total exemption limit, threshold limit has been increased and all the exemptions are being taken away. But if you look at the total direct tax collections, you would find that the direct tax collections are mostly coming from the personal taxation. Corporate taxation has actually not been showing any significant growth. And the personal taxation, people have been contributing more taxpayers are coming. So instead of taxing more on the people who are already paying taxes, government should try to widen the tax net and bring in more people into the tax net and then give more concessions and allowances for the people, especially mostly people who are in the salary sector. They are the people who are in the forefront, mostly paying because their every income has to be disclosed. And I mean, they are the people who are put on the difficult situation like. So there should be concessions that should be given. But what is happening is the number of people who are paying tax in India compared to other countries is much less. It is less than 5%. The total population, only less than 5% is paying taxes. And the people who are paying more than 1 crore tax is less than 50,000. And in one of the earlier budget discussions, Mr. Chidambaram, the then finance minister, said that if you take Delhi Noida area itself, there will be people who are earning more to pay more than tax of more than 1 crore. So, I mean, there is a lot of people, I mean, a lot of escapement in taxation, which has to be properly analyzed, and the collection mechanism and supervisory mechanism has to be improved.
So just to add on a lighter note, right? There is a saying that goes something like this. So if you're rich, you get a bailout, right? If you're poor, you get a handout. And if you're middle class, you get left out. So, but I think on a serious note, I think we better get used to the idea that some of us are no more middle class. In fact, the bulk of the population, the earning population in the country, the white collar and people like you and me and everybody here, In terms of strict income tax definitions, right, or bulk of the population, the tax paying, the tax filing, whichever way you want to dissect, I think if we want India to really have a good world-class infrastructure, which we are beginning to get now. So look at our airports. The top 7, 8 cities, the airports that we have are far better than what Europe has or America has today, right? These are absolutely world-class. You look at some of the roads, some of the other infrastructure, railways, we are beginning to get our act together. The digital infrastructure, I think we need to migrate to the idea that if you're talking about a $5 trillion economy, if you're talking about a Viksit Bharat, I think our mentality also has to change. And Mr. Shantakumar just spoke about how very few people do pay taxes honestly or to the extent that they should. I think there is a mindset change also needed. So nothing comes for free, right? And if we're getting world-class infrastructure, we all better get used to the idea of paying for it.
Thank you. Thank you. And sir, now over to you, please.
Sir, I'm Neeraj Bharti from State Bank of India. The deficit numbers are less than what market was expected, and the bond market has rallied a good amount on that. And during last 2-3 months, wherever there is a discussion or even a whisper about rate cut, RBI put down it very happily, mentioning clearly that they are not looking at 2 to 6%. They are looking only at 4% minimum. So whether you expect any change of instance from RBI during this meeting or next meeting, and then obvious question, when you expect the first rate cut in India?
Okay. Yeah. Over to you, Vijay Kumar first, then perhaps others can also follow suit. Yes.
Yes, yes. Of course, you can expect rate cuts in 2024, but it would be very difficult to time the rate cut. First, we'll have to see what the Fed does. Now, the Fed has made it very clear day before yesterday in the Fed chief Jerome Powell's message that, of course, the US economy is heading for a soft landing. The GDP growth is 3.1% in 2023. 1 year back, everyone was talking about a recession in the US, but the economy has surprised everyone. And the inflation has come down to 2.6% in December, year to year. And the unemployment rate continues to be a 40-year low at around 3.7%. So the Fed also is sitting pretty in the sweet spot, so to speak, because they were very much concerned. So the Fed has not ruled out a rate cut in March. They have not ruled out a rate cut in March. The Fed will always say we will take a decision based on the incoming data and the evolving outlook. That is a phrase which they always say, incoming data and evolving outlook. So if the incoming data shows that the US economy is slowing down and that the labor market is becoming less tight, they might even cut in March itself, did not wait till May. So if the Fed does not cut, the RBI also will not cut, because 5.69% inflation in December is not very comfortable, even though it is within the band of 2 to 6. The target is 4%, and we have entrenched food inflation also. So the RBI will not be too eager to cut. They will follow what the Fed will do, because otherwise there will be a flight of capital from within the country, which will bring pressure on the exchange rate also. That also has to be taken into consideration, because movements in the US 10-year bond yield immediately reflects on foreign portfolio investments in India, inflows as well as outflows. So in January, for instance, there was a big outflow of more than 25,000 crores from the foreign portfolio investors, because the 10-year bond yield shot up from 3.85% to 4.18%. But then again, it has come down to 3.88%, and the FBI always have been responding to the bond yields. Therefore, you can expect rate cuts in 2024, no doubt about that. But the timing of the rate cut and the quantum of the rate cut, it would be difficult to hazard a guess at this point of time.
Yeah. Sachidanand, you want to comment?
So my thought is that I think India will see a rate cut around the middle of the year. And I think apart from the Fed that Mr. Vijay Kumar spoke about, the other element is that the RBI may want to look at the forecasts of the monsoon this year. And then we know food inflation has been a big problem for us for the last several months. And also, there is another event that the RBI would want some clarity on, which is the full budget that will come in sometime in July. So by that time, the RBI will be clearer on what the Fed does. I think the Fed would have cut by then. And then we'll have clarity from the IMD and SkyMet and some of the weather agencies in terms of what the forecast looks like for monsoon. And the RBI will also have clarity from the full budget numbers. I don't think much should change, but nevertheless, better to get that event risk out of the way. So I think around the middle of the year, I do expect the RBI to move on rates.
Thank you. Thank you. So perhaps we are in the last 5-10 minutes for the close of the program. Any more questions? Please unmute and ask. Sir, yeah, please.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Shivakumar, sir. Good afternoon. I'm Shivakumar, GM from Corporate Center, Mumbai. There is one announcement regarding the financial assistance to Maldives. I think about 600 crores they allocated funds for Maldives. Due to recent developments in the in terms of relations with the Maldives, how would see this investment, sir? Whether are we doing such investments or financial assistance, not investment, financial assistance to the country? Suppose Sri Lanka has also gone through this, I think, last year, I think it was the turmoil in this economy and all. But I would see this, I think, assistance to Maldives, whether this is any background of any political reasons or how is it?
Okay. Sir, Vijay Kumar, sir, yeah, please. Santakumar, sir, please. I think you need to unmute. Sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to see it in the larger geopolitical situations. You have been finding that China is trying to slowly circle us from all sides, and they are making heavy investments in these countries, and they are trying to lure in the countries by giving a lot of money. And you have found in the case of Sri Lanka, they have invested a lot of money, and the Sri Lankan government finances went into doldrums, and they couldn't repay because of the debt, and they had to give a portion of the port was being given to Chinese to manage as a security, and they could not repay it. And in that time, India government has also given about 3 billion rupees or so to the Sri Lankan government. Now, Maldives is a very, very strategically located place, and Indian relationship has been with the Maldives has been very good over the years. And in between, there have been ups and downs. And as a political strategy, we have to support them, because now the new dispensation which has come into power, because always small countries fear that the larger countries around, they may impose more force on them, because if you take India, we have about 25 crore Muslims, whereas in the case of Maldives, they have only about 8 or 10 lakhs of them. So that way, those countries have a fear complex. And the latest government which has come into dispensation, which has come into power, their slogan was to oust India. That was a slogan on the basis of which they came to power. So, I mean, we have been diplomatically trying to just cajole them, bring them back to the fold so that we can have a peaceful neighborhood, because already we have on the northeast and northwest, we have the Pakistan and China, who has always not been very friendly with us. So we don't want to have animosities with all the countries around, and to have a good harmonious relationship with these countries, we are giving them this sorts of a loan, soft loans.
Sir, one more, in fact, related question, in fact, must be from participant who had attended programs from Nepal with SBIL. He's asking how a country like Nepal can benefit from our interim budget. Vijay Kumar, sir, you can add anything to that?
I think Shantakumar is more competent to answer that.
I see. Okay, please, Shantakumar, sir. Yeah.
It's already explained.
Yeah, this interim budget, as I told you, this budget has not given any socks or anything of that sort, not even given any budget proposals on taxation side or anything of that sort. And maybe in the coming budget, which will be maybe in the month of June or July, the government will come with more proposals, because as it stands, our exports to countries, including Nepal and other countries, have not picked up. So more incentivization might be done so that our exports to these countries would be improved, and also in that way that it may be helping Nepal and other countries. Yugama sir, if you want, you can add a few points.
No, that's enough.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So one last question, please. Yeah, please.
Sir, today RBI has announced VRRR for 50,000.
Okay.
And already VRR for 250,000 crores is available in the market. So if I remember, this is one of the rare occasions when VRRR and VRR both are open in the market. So what is your reading about this new 50,000 crores VRRR declared by RBI?
Who wants to answer? Vijay Kumar sir?
I think Dr. Shukla will be having more information.
Yes.
So I think this is something that has been under consideration for some time. If you recall, 3 years back, we had humongous liquidity, 7 lakh crore positive, right? Just under 3 years, it's gone to negative 3.3, 3.4, which is a large deficit. Now, how do you really infuse liquidity? I mean, obviously, the OMO part, the RBI does not really give any advance notice or doesn't really want people to know. And the VRR is something that was thought of being able to help the liquidity part without incurring any costs on the policy side, as well as for any negative connotations for the banks and financial participants. So I think yes, it's still unique that they're using both the instruments together. It's not really played out like that, but the playbook has to really change. And I think one of the bigger problems for the RBI on the liquidity side has been that they've not been able to adequately gauge the government cash balance situation, right? It's been very, very volatile. And that has added to the problems of really forecasting the liquidity needs adequately. And therefore, you're using the RBI is also now trying to adapt its toolkit by using both these simultaneously to address that. Because I think that has been a big problem over the last month at least. The government liquidity part or the cash balances part has been a problem, and there is a huge swing, and therefore the RBI is trying to just adapt its playbook or toolkit to address that.
Thank you, Dr. Sachidanand. So we have totally run out of time, and we need to stop the Q&A part of it. Perhaps the last words from the experts. I'll take it to Dr. Shantakumar. Sir, could you summarize the 3 big hits and 3 big misses in the interim budget as you see it? As last part, I think you need to unmute, sir.
Yeah. So the 3 big hits are, one is investment in the infrastructure, because you would be seeing that since 2010-11, the private sector investments have not been forthcoming. And during the boom period, before 2008, the public sector has invested heavily, and so the capacity utilization has only now reached about 70% of their investment, and they have not been investing. They have been shy of investment. So investment in infrastructure is the first point I would see as a hit. And second thing is providing for IT for R&D, 1 trillion for the research and development, because we need skilled people. Mr. Narayanamurthy had gone on record saying that even the educated people, 25% of them are, of the engineers are only employable. So we have to skill the people, otherwise we'll lose the advantage of this demographic dividend, because if people are not skilled, then we will not be able to take the country forward. And the third thing is regarding this Lakpati Didi scheme. which provides minimum 1 lakh per annum for setting up micro enterprises within the villages. This Lakpati scheme and Sakshan, Anganwadi and Portion 2.0.
True.
Total investment comes to around 26,000 crores. So villages, ladies empowerment and providing employment to the ladies in the village will be a booster, because as Dr. Vijaykumar has said, they are the people who can add more to the GDP. And if they are brought into the mainstream, their investments are also being available, tracked digitally and all that, that will add to the economy's GDP by 1 to 2%. These are the three hits. And the three misses, I would say, is for a country's GDP to grow, it should be imperative. It is imperative that both the central government's economy or financial system improves and the state governments also improves. As I had mentioned earlier, the state government's finances are, most of the state governments have been borrowing through left, right, and center without having any discipline. The state governments, though they have enacted in 2000, along with the FRBM Act, they have enacted 2 new laws. They have thrown into the bins and they have been spending money like anything, and that too ostentatious and unproductive expenditure. So unless that is being curtailed, the growth, overall growth of economy will not be much. And second thing is regarding the FDI flow. FDI flow, I would like to say a few words, because if you would see, the FDI flow during the first half of this 24 financial year is the lowest and since 2007-8. And as a percentage of the GDP, also it is the lowest other than 2005-6. And the total FDI flow into the country is only 10.1 billion during the first 6 months of this fiscal year. And as a percentage of GDP, it has dropped to 1%. And if you should compare this with the expenditure on PLI schemes. Even though PLI schemes, government is giving a lot of incentives, companies are not investing in it in India because of two to three reasons. First reason is that our laws are not very ease of doing business is there. They are not very transparent. If you go to lower levels, still corruption is rampant, and because of which companies are just not, foreign companies are not wanting to come and invest in India. And the second reason is that we have cancelled out of the 74 BITs, that is bilateral international agreements, we have cancelled 68 of them. If you cancel those agreements, what happens is they will not get any legal protection. Main advantage of these BITs is that if there is any issue, if there is any dispute, the dispute will be resolved in International Court of Justice or outside or in a third country. So once the BITs are cancelled, what happens is then they cannot take the litigation. If it is in the Indian country, it will be advantageous mostly advantageous to the locals than to the foreign investors. And thirdly, the FTA policies, government has introduced new FTAs instead of BITs. They have introduced FTAs. Though we have several FTAs to other countries, in the FTA agreement, what is happening is that the countries can take or they can access the Indian market without actual investment in these countries. So why should they invest in the country when they can access the Indian market without investing in it? So that is the FTA side. So these are the second side regarding the FTA. Third one is regarding we should be cognizant of the fact that 70% of the Indian workforce and population is in the villages, and average growth from 17-18 to 22-23 was in the agriculture sector was 4.4%, and during 23-24 it has dropped to 1.8%. So we should do something to boost the rural economy. Unless the rural economy is boosted, there will not be any growth for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And to Dr. Sachidanand, the three big hits and misses, and succinctly, over to you.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, I think I'll just use a few words. I think the three words which summarize the hits are consistency. When I say consistency, it is consolidation of the fisc and capex-led growth. Confidence, a government going into elections and then not really spending, not being populist, just shows the kind of confidence that they have in the ability to really steer the economy. And the third is credibility. So if you look at the numbers, I mean, we've had our discussion and a lot has been spoken about. The numbers or the fiscal arithmetic seems to be really credible. In terms of misses, I think I will not repeat what's been said. Just one thing I wanted to highlight is the revenue expenditure growth, the rate at which it is going down. So we had just 2.5% growth in revenue expenditure, and that is the largest component of spending. And that has an impact on livelihoods and business activities in the hinterland. And I think there should be some moderation because ultimately that will impact capacity utilization and sustained private sector capex. So I'll just stop at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Succinctly you put it. Right. Over to you, Dr. Vijay Kumar, for the final words on 3 big hits as well as misses.
We have overshot the time. The time deficit is very high, more alarming than India's fiscal deficit.
Yeah, I know that you have one more program to catch. Please. Yeah.
Yes. I'll be very brief. The first thing, this is a vote on account largely, even though we call it an interim budget. This is a vote on account, and in a vote on account, you should not be having high expectations. So if you don't have high expectations, there will not be any misses, right? So I will just be very brief and focus on one hit and one miss. The hit, of course, as already explained in my earlier elucidation, is the fiscal consolidation. And the miss is, well, because of a high inflation, there has been an erosion of purchasing power, and the middle class, as Dr. Shukla rightly said, has been left out. So it would have been appropriate to give a little bit of a relief for the taxpayers, particularly at the lower strata of the income tax slab. That is the only miss that I can think of at this point of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for such an engrossing discussion for the past 1.5 hours. And thank you on behalf of the State Bank Institute of Leadership, all the panelists, Dr. Vijay Kumar, Dr. Shanta Kumar, Dr. Sachidanand Shukla, and also our director for coming on board and giving the welcome to the gathering. And big thank to all of you, all the participant cohorts of the program, both STP as well as FDP, for getting tuned and also asking those relevant questions. I hope you had a money's worth of spending this time here. And the virtual participants who had joined both from India and various parts of the world, a big thank you to you. I'm sure that you would have been highly enlightened by the discussions on this Union interim budget. So we'll be, as Connect of Alumni Connect, we'll be continuously doing similar programs. So any future themes also you can put it in the chat box. What is the view of this particular program? What is the takeaway for you, and so on? How do you find the program, and so on? And any future themes as well. So a big thank you for, first of all, getting tuned to this program on behalf of the State Bank Institute of Leadership. And a big thank to my faculty colleagues as well as the support team here who work at the background, the IT and other guys who had helped in successfully putting together this particular program. A big shout out and thanks to them as well. Thank you so much. So you can get going.
Thank you, Krishna Kumar. I just borrow the words of Winston Churchill, who about drinking with liquor. He said, "I take more out of the liquor than out of me." And same way, I have got more out of this program than I have contributed to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We are a perennial learner, from each of our discussions. And the whole thing is available in both YouTube as well as in the Facebook page. So in future also, if you want to get tuned to it, you need to only type, interim budget in SBIL page. You will get it in both the YouTube as well as. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shukla sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shukla. Thank you, Dr. Vijay Kumar.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Dr.
Shanta Kumar.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll meet again next year.
Hopefully. Thank you. Sure.